Let's get pop conscious.
Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Conscious. Today you've got just the girls, Stacy, Macris, Ross, and Malayna Dawn, which is me.
Yay.
Yay, yes.
Yes.
So today we'll be talking about how to consume the media without letting it consume you, which, conscious consumerism.
I like it.
Pop conscious. Get it?
I do get it.
Yay.
So to that end, I am giving myself a little bit of a challenge.
Okay.
Are you ready for this, my friend? For you and all of our listeners as my witness.
Okay.
I have decided that I am going to find some kind of spiritual truth or nugget, golden nugget, if you will, spiritual principle.
Something good like that.
Something good like that from the show The Bachelor.
Okay. So what you're saying is it's a guilty pleasure. You're feeling a little guilty about it, and so you want to redeem yourself by finding something useful in it, right?
Thank you for summarizing my feelings. Yes, exactly.
Well, that's what guilty pleasures are, right?
Well, they are. And so because, it's unity, and one of our beliefs is finding the good in everything, everywhere, seeing the good in everything, everywhere. So I've decided this is a pretty big challenge because have you watched this show?
I have not.
So let me just inform you what the show is.
Okay, and I'll see if I can find something good in just your description. How's that?
As we go along.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's actually been on for 12 years.
Whoa.
Right? Because I realized that pretty much my entire older son's life, I've been watching this show.
Wow.
Right.
And his voice has already changed. So that's a long time.
That's right. So it's a bachelor.
I got that much from the title.
From the title, right. So, and they're always young and, handsome, gorgeous guys.
Helps. Maybe that's why you're watching right there.
Well, my husband watches too.
Okay. That's probably not the same reason he's watching.
Well, well, I don't know why, but there's 25 beautiful women who are all vying for The Bachelor.
That's why he's watching.
Now, they've made it a bit of a soap opera.
Okay.
Because now what they started doing, they got smart about halfway through. And now they tie in one of the rejected, bachelors or bachelorettes. They now become the new bachelor or bachelorette.
Okay.
So you got to watch because you've been invested in this person's story about them getting, rejected. So the current bachelor is Juan Pablo. He's got a lot of Latino charm.
Okay.
The ladies are crazy for him.
Now, am I correct in guessing that is who is on your husband's Facebook page as his profile? Because it's certainly not him right now, and I didn't know who that was.
Yes, that's Juan Pablo.
Okay.
Not my Juan. No. Juan Pablo from The Bachelor.
Gotcha.
So he was so popular that instead of giving him 25 women to choose from, they gave him 27.
Okay.
Okay. Now.
Yes.
He dates all 27 women.
Okay.
Now, they say it's a journey for love.
It sounds tiring to me, I got to be honest.
I know, right? But now they're supposed to be able to choose each other.
So it's kind of like a job interview.
It kind of is.
He's interviewing for the job of his wife.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And so sometimes they go on one-on-one dates, but other times they're on the dates with, it could be up to 12 of them on a date.
Interesting.
Right. So
avant-garde.
So there's a lot of drama that goes along. A lot of tears.
I would imagine.
A lot of, and it's interesting because, the women really get caught up, even if they maybe have only had 5 minutes with him over the cocktail party.
Right.
And maybe a group date. When they get sent home, because see, at the end of a week,
right,
he then gives out roses, and there's always,
so the rose is a farewell rose?
No, so if you get a rose, then you stay another week.
I see.
If you don't get a rose, bye-bye. And so if you don't get a rose...
Well, rejection is hard to take in any arena.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I think that they think they're sad about that relationship, but there's really not a relationship, see?
Right.
It's really...
Well, this is where the principle of envisioning what you want to create in your life can sometimes get a little murky, where if you are so invested in the vision that you aren't seeing the reality, then you could get hurt or confused or disappointed like these women.
This is true.
Okay. So it could be a cautionary tale that we're finding here.
It could be. It could be.
Okay.
But, so at the end, he
narrows it down to one.
He gets between two.
Okay.
He goes to 4 hometown dates.
Okay.
And then there's 3 on a romantic date. some exotic locale.
Okay.
And then he gets down to 2 and they meet his parents.
Okay.
And now one of those 2 or one of the 4 usually will become the Bachelorette. See, this is what I'm saying. So over 12 years. Okay. So it's almost like in the Bible story, like the 12 tribes of Israel.
Okay, I'm waiting to see how
12 tribes of the Bachelor.
To the Bible stories. Okay, very good. Well, there are tales of old. I'm not sure if it's necessarily from the Bible of patriarchs who have many wives. And in the Bible, in the Old Testament, we know that Abraham had his servant wife. And so many of them did, which, started a whole people. So
that's right.
And now we're having spin-offs. So the Bible has spin-offs.
Exactly. It's a modern day spin-off.
Okay. All right.
So, you could look at it from the outside and say it has really no spiritual redeeming value. But I have decided right here now, I'm making a commitment to find it because their first season, their season ends around the same time as our first season. So,
so we'll find it by the end.
I will report back
okay,
on the good I found in The Bachelor.
Like that.
Like it?
Well, and I also think in doing Bible study through Unity also looks at the social situation and the historical situation.
Ooh, that's
so
good.
We're also looking at what is it in our culture that makes this show so popular, and why is finding love and finding a mate still so paramount to people when socially you don't really need that support. It used to be based on you were married to keep your families going, to keep, women didn't have the choice to work.
Right.
So they couldn't support themselves, but now women can support themselves. So now this has become sort of like almost
like a fantasy, right? We're still holding on to the fantasy of what love or romantic love and that fairy tale looks like.
Right.
Wow, you're blowing my mind with that.
I love blowing your mind.
I hadn't actually thought of it that way. But you're right, because statistically, marriages are going down and women in particular are waiting longer to get married. So it's interesting that on a show like this that is so popular, has lasted for 12 years.
Okay, I'll ask you a question that I don't know the answer to. Maybe you do. How many of those marriages that were founded from the winner of the show have actually lasted?
Okay, good question.
Do you know the stats?
Last night, man, was awesome TV because we had the Grammys, we had Downton Abbey, and then we had one of the Bachelors married.
Okay,
live wedding.
Whoa!
So there's actually been 3 weddings.
Okay.
So the first Bachelorette, which came from the very first Bachelor, her and her husband have been married 10 years now.
Okay.
They have 2 kids. Yeah, that is good. That's a good record. There was actually another couple. She was the second choice. But when they came back to do after the show, like final or after the rose is what they call it.
Okay.
He actually told the woman he chose, he didn't choose her. He wanted the ring back. And then the woman he had rejected got back together with her.
Okay.
But now they're married and they have a child or 2.
Okay.
So that's looked at as a successful Bachelor marriage. And then they just had a wedding this last year for another couple, and now last night.
So 12 years.
So 12 years, 4 marriages.
4 marriages.
Right.
Okay.
And there's the last Bachelorette is engaged.
Okay.
So we'll see. Sometimes those don't go all the way through, but so far 4.
I'm glad to hear that at the end of it, they don't actually make them get married at the end of the show, which is kind of what I had envisioned, like How to Marry a Millionaire or Who Wants to Marry a Millionaire, that show.
That lasted one.
Yeah, and turned out to be like a complete hoax, that he wasn't really a millionaire. And, and that puts a whole other spin on women don't need to support themselves, but would like to be supported by a millionaire and have the easy life rather than supporting themselves. So there are lots of things that we can explore within this, Stacy. I don't want you to feel too guilty about your guilty pleasure.
Thank you.
I've got my own. And, I think I'm still feeling a little guilty about Twilight, but I had a lot of people supporting me in the Twilight.
Yeah.
And I actually wrote an article about the sociology and symbology and redeeming qualities of Twilight.
Did you really?
It's on my blog. And from that article, a woman in South America read it, found me online because she read the series and also was searching for some little deeper meaning to it. And she contacted me, and she has offered to do the Spanish edit version or the Spanish translation of my book.
Wow.
Because she likes what I wrote so much. Her name is Barbara. Shout out to Barbara, Magic Mirror shout out. Because she liked what I wrote so much about Twilight, she asked for a copy of my book, Echoes Across Time. She liked it and now wants to do the Spanish language translation. So how fun is that? And it's all because Twilight.
Yeah, I didn't get into Twilight. So can you just give us like a little bit of what were some of the...
Why was it what drew me in?
Exactly. Okay. What drew you in? What did you find spiritually enriching?
Okay. Well, it was initially my good friend Leslie who said that she got sucked in and didn't believe it, but she had to read one after the other. And then her daughter, Gabby, when the movie came out.
Now, how many books and movies are there?
There are 4 books, and they made it into 5 movies, I believe. Gabby told me I had to watch the movie. And so I did, as my goddaughter said, and watched it while I was in Sri Lanka. And I found myself wanting to know more. That I had questions about the relationship between a teen girl. What I liked about the movie is that it was a mystery. The whole movie, for the most part, is her trying to figure out this guy who's aloof and yet has all of these interesting abilities and seems to be interested in her, but she can't break through that defense of his not telling her who he is or what he's about. So I liked the mystery and the way that unfolded. I like mystery type things in general and puzzles to figure out. So a lot of my guilty pleasures are based on like murder mysteries and CSI and all these things. But then she finds out and she enters this whole other world that she didn't know existed.
Oh, wow.
So, throughout the series, though, it unravels so that you find out that all these myths that you thought were just myths are actually true and alive in the modern world today, but just hidden. And that there's a whole subtext when you read the news of what's really happening, and it's supernatural.
Oh my gosh, it's like reading the Bible.
That's supernatural too.
Well, it's just that it has a deeper meaning than what you think, and that you can apply it to your life in a very modern way.
And this was written by a Mormon woman, Stephanie Meyer, and you can see a lot of biblical themes that are echoed through the characters and through the tribes and the names in the books, and all the monsters that you think are monsters. There are really good ones that have a soul and that act from a higher place within themselves. So though they are labeled monsters, they choose not to act like monsters.
Wow, that kind of reminds me of working with children, actually.
How is that, Stacey?
And working with myself.
Okay.
Well, because there's always that part of us that wants to, that little monster inside of us that wants to act out or wants to, because a need isn't getting met or we have big, big feelings inside. And so it feels like a monster. And it's okay. We can just comfort the monster and realize it's really a kind monster. It's just letting us know what's going on. Exactly. Yeah. There's actually a new Eminem song right now with Rihanna.
Right.
Called Monsters.
Yeah.
Monster?
I don't know.
I think it's one monster. Okay. But part of the lyrics are monster in my head, monster under my bed. And I really like that because it's, we all wrestle with that part of ourselves sometimes that is just really struggling through something and feels like there's that monster talking to us.
Well, I like just from the 2 little phrases you said, monster in my head is an inner demon.
Right.
And monster under my bed is an imaginary outer demon.
Oh.
So just in those 2 phrases, it's based on our fears of the outside world, of the unknown, of the dark, and fear of what's inside ourselves, the darkness that may be inside ourselves.
Right.
And that maybe, we don't even see. I've been struggling with something the last week where I feel like I am being seen as a monster. And yet I feel like I was acting from my best intentions. So it's very frustrating for me to see that reflection and think, okay, where did I lose track of what was going on? I thought I was doing good and I was working really hard to do it.
Right.
And yet the reflection I'm seeing is not that. Like, I feel like I'm being seen as someone who has come in and taken over and bossed everybody around and rah, rah, rah.
You were the monster.
I was the monster, but I wasn't trying to be.
That wasn't your intention.
No.
Well, I think it's about intention too.
It is, but I guess with intention, you have to work with the world around you. So, and that's part of what we do on our journey with unity, is learn how to balance the spiritual and the real, be in the world, but not of the world.
Right. Well, and I think too, to that awareness piece, because really, if anything, the more awakened you become, the more classes you take, the more aware you are. I think that's part of why we want to turn on The Bachelor and just sleep for a while, for me anyway.
Right.
Because now I do feel like with our classes and just, the spiritual stuff we're doing, that you're so aware all the time of every action, of every thought, of how it's perceived, and being, the observer. And
I love how you just tied that into what I was about to say.
It's all good. And sometimes we need to turn on something to make us go to sleep for a little bit.
Right. So that is the first step of how to consume the media without letting it consume you, is to observe. Pay attention to what you're watching and listening to and reading. Think about it in terms of how someone else would see you based on your choices. And look at your guilty pleasures. Look for patterns and themes. So,
should we talk about this more when we come back?
We totally will. And in the meantime, I'll just let you know that you can find the archives of our previous shows. And when we're done with this one, at unityonlineradio.org/popconscious. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Pop Conscious. I was so excited that I actually popped the Pop Conscious.
You were having a 10-second dance party.
I was, every time I hear our song, I'm dancing. And I'm on fire today. We're talking about being a conscious consumer of the media. And in our first segment, we talked about, my self-imposed challenge to find the spiritual in the show The Bachelor. But that was part of looking at being the observer. Our first step, what Malayna and myself have said, there's 3 steps to being a conscious consumer. And the first one is observing. And if you observe that you're watching shows, such as The Bachelor, just being okay with it.
Exactly.
So now we're moving into
the next step,
discernment, which is one of our spiritual powers or abilities. And looking at, what do you enjoy? What gives you pleasure? And I can say, last night, as I just said before, a little earlier, last night, Power Night on TV.
Right.
Part of that was the Grammys.
Okay.
And it made me think about how music brings us all together. So, I'm a big believer in intergenerational ministry. Love it, having 5-year-olds with the 95-year-olds all together. And so to me, last year, I noticed this, and this year again, I love this idea of intergenerational music.
Okay.
Because they have started to pair up the rock stars of yore.
Okay.
Those from the 60s, 70s, 80s with your, new modern person who has their hit out right now.
Okay. So it's like the School of Rock. You get rock history and you get to connect it to the pop stars of today.
Right. So often I think with music in particular, every generation thinks, oh, this is my generation of music. And so it's so great that we can look at it and say, hey, the younger person can be singing the other person's song from the 60s or 70s or 80s. And that person now can come and sing whatever, the modern song is. We can all just join in this oneness of music and celebration. And it reminds me that music it's almost like something tribal, right?
It is. It's deep in our DNA.
It is, where it just really connects us. And it's interesting to me what songs really connect people, Well, so one of the intergenerational music pieces last night was Robin Thicke.
Okay.
He had a huge hit this last year, Blurred Lines. We won't go into that, but it was huge. So they paired him up with Chicago.
Wow.
it was awesome. And you could see they were all having such a great time. So you had this, I think Robin Thicke's maybe 40.
If that
38 to 42, somewhere in there.
Okay.
So he's this, young swooner, if you will. He's got the charisma. And he was just jamming with Chicago, who has this great,
it's a big band.
Big band, right? And you could tell that those guys were having a great time. It was awesome. And then you had, and they won lots of awards. Daft Punk, which is a favorite of my 13-year-old. And
yeah, I like them too.
Well, see, and there you go. So, and they've actually been around from the 90s, but just in this last year or so, been getting a lot more.
Well, they did a collaboration with Pharrell, right? So,
right.
And I pretty much think Pharrell can do no wrong.
No, he can't.
He's so happy. He reminds me, when I hear anything that he's done, I just get happy instantly. His voice and the feel of his music, it makes me think of Stevie Wonder.
Well, guess what? Apparently someone else thought that too, because they paired up. So Pharrell with Daft Punk, they have their big hit, which won, I believe, 4 awards last night. The song's called Get Lucky. So we'll just go with it like my 9-year-old thinks it's just about, being lucky.
Yeah.
And then they paired up with Stevie Wonder. And then there was someone else from the 70s, an awesome guitar player. I bet we can.
Let's see.
It's Nile Rodgers, I think. I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. He
was it Ocean or
Nile Rodgers?
Yeah. No, what band was he in?
I'm thinking. What was the band after Duran Duran with Robert Palmer?
Sure, that band.
Yeah, that band.
So a classic, in other words. So they had all these guys up on stage, and it became a dance party.
Wow.
I mean, so you had like Sir John McCartney and Ringo Starr, who I think has also been knighted, right? You have them in the front row, and then you got Beyonce, and you got Taylor Swift. I mean, all ages, all generations, all singing, having an awesome party.
And I hear all directions, too, because I hear Pink sung upside down while spinning Cirque du Soleil style on a rope.
Right, I missed that one.
I haven't seen it, but my Facebook friends have kept me updated.
Yes, I've seen that on
And
Facebook.
that's how I heard about the Stevie Wonder Pharrell mashup, from my friend Paul Colbert.
Yeah, it reminded me just how we can actually have music bring us together in such a positive way. Again, sometimes we think, oh, we've got our music in our generation. I mean, and we will. We'll always have the 80s will always be me and my friend Malayna, and 60s will always be my parents. And, so, and Daft Punk will always be Julian's, era, if you will. But at the same time, we can all then come together and celebrate.
Yeah.
And just really have a good time. That's
Absolutely.
A song too, I believe.
Yes. And actually, having lived outside of the United States, they air the Grammys across the world. So people all over the world who are listening to this on pop stations all over the world. I mean, in Sri Lanka, there are pop music stations, adult contemporary stations, alternative stations playing the same music. So it really does unite cultures everywhere. They're all going and dancing to the same music that we are.
Isn't that awesome? I mean, I'm so fired up about this because it's across the ages, across the countries, and it's just music can bring us all together.
Absolutely.
Yay. And so here was something else that came out of the Grammys last night. And you may have heard about it. So there's a really popular song. It won an award last night.
Okay.
It's by Macklemore and Lewis, and it's called Same Love. And he wrote the song, Macklemore, I believe. He's straight, but he has an uncle and friends who are gay, and he was really feeling, a lot of big, strong feelings around it and wrote a song. And it's become the anthem of not just that movement of being able to have same-sex marriages, but really of a generation. So again, here is pop culture and music that's able to take, just one person is able to make such a positive difference on not just on the country, not just in the world, but for an entire civil rights movement, if you will.
Absolutely.
And it was pretty amazing last night. Queen Latifah, who
I really love her.
Yes, who I do. I really like her too. She ended up ordaining 33 couples.
Wow.
Last night, got married on the Grammys. Some of them were same sex, and some of them weren't.
We're different sex.
We're different sex, right? And I think for me, maybe I need the visual because the song is called Same Love, and I guess I just thought same love meaning same sex love.
Okay.
I didn't get the big, I mean, I think at some level.
It's the same kind of love, no matter who's loving.
Exactly.
It's all love.
So I think I needed the visual last night of the Grammys, because to see 33 couples lined up and all in their wedding attire. And I think there was a couple transgendered couples and definitely, some gay couples and straight couples. But to see all of them connecting heart to heart, eyes to eyes, hands to hands, and then getting that real same love.
Ooh, I'm getting chills as you tell me about it. I didn't even see
up.
it.
See, we're not even on TV. Otherwise, you'd see me getting teared up because it's so powerful. Yeah. And again, so this ability of music and media to bring a spotlight to a bigger movement and to really get moved. I mean, even I think Keith Urban was in the crowd crying. I mean, it was really a powerful image and a powerful moment. And I just thought, wow, how awesome that media again can help us move in a positive direction as a society.
Absolutely. And that's why you want to use your discernment, because you can choose what you listen to. You can choose the music that makes you feel good, and you can pay attention by if something doesn't make you feel good. If you've listened to something and it makes you feel angry after, and you're all aggro and want to start fights when you get to work from listening to whatever you've listened to on the way to work, you can change that and decide that you're going to listen to, I've been listening to Comedy Central Radio on Sirius XM, and I laugh my way to work. I have a 40-minute commute. I laugh all the way. And sometimes I switch it up because I want some music, or Oprah has a station.
Channel, right?
So I'll listen to something inspirational. But I was even looking at what are the presets that I have on my Sirius XM to figure out what are my tendencies. And I had a classical station, but I think I changed it for a soul station because I know I would listen to that more often. And I have a couple of 80s stations because I like listening to the original MTV VJs on one and Richard Blade on the other, who I worked with at KROQ when I was an intern. Word to the interns, former interns. So that's how I was using my discernment. Okay, what is it that I've chosen? I chose it kind of haphazardly by what was interesting to me at the time. But now, to
observe that, that's a great, I think that's a great tool, because as a mom to a 4th grader and 8th grader, I feel like I'm using my discernment quite often when it comes to, in particular, TV and social media, right? So as a family, we really choose what we're going to watch.
Right.
So we'll watch things like Modern Family, because even the riskier jokes go over the head of the nine-year-old, But really, that TV show is, again, about family love and connection, because they always have a sweet ending that ties everyone together. Or we always watch The Amazing Race, I've mentioned before, again, because it gives us glimpses into other cultures. And, of course, me being the mom I am, I like to point out the teams that are getting along.
Okay, good. Well, and hey, life is a game. So if you see that metaphor, that is your water. Life is a game. That helps you see that when you lose, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. You just keep playing, you get back in the game. So that's a good thing for The Amazing Race.
Right. It's interesting. I like that idea that you used of using that tool of kind of observing or taking a checklist, if you will, of what stations am I listening, looking at your, presets, looking at maybe what you've recorded on TV. I think also our apps.
Yeah.
Because look at the apps on my phone. I noticed. Let's look now. We'll just open up my phone. But I was going to say, I know one thing I have on here is the Daily Word.
Ah, yes. There is a Daily Word app.
Now, I do love my paper little book, Daily Word. There's something comforting. It's like a blanket to me because I've grown up with the Daily Word. So to be able to hold on to it is nice. But I know no matter where I am, and I do a lot of traveling now, I have it on my phone.
That is very
And they
cool.
have meditations on there too.
Wow.
They have a meditation music, or they have a meditation for the month. I also have, and this was recommended actually by Reverend Paul Hasselbeck, Dean of the Institute there, and he recommended Insight Timer, which is
a meditation timer.
And you know what I love about this is that you can find out how many people are meditating at the same time.
Well, at least meditating using Insight Timer.
Well, that's what's so awesome, right? So right now it says 222 people are meditating, but really, there's probably more. Because that's just the people who have the app.
Exactly.
So that's pretty cool. But so looking at our apps too, and I think Facebook, I've become a lot more having a lot more discernment around. I try to really scan through my feed and see what here on my newsfeed will feed me, will feed my soul, has a positive message that maybe I want to pass on to someone else. And I think then that goes back to our own discernment over what then we want to share, right?
Yes, exactly. Because I also find myself thinking, I've got 8, maybe 10 now godchildren if I adopted Stacy's unofficially.
You did by birth.
Officially. Just for, being around.
Right.
So I've got a lot of godkids is what I'm saying. And many of them are my Facebook friends. So before I post something, I have to remember, I'm not just sharing this with a bunch of grownups. I am influencing my godkids. And what do I want them to know about me? What do I want them to see reflected from me? What kind of example do I want to be?
And I also think too, and I appreciate that, and I work with teens, the YOU, the Union Teens in the Southwest region, which are our middle school and high school groups. So I need to use discernment with that as well. But also just what messages do I want to put out into the world?
Right. That are associated with you too. I mean, it's your Facebook profile. So when people go to look you up, what do they see about you?
And what do I want to continue to pass along in the world? Because we know that our words are powerful and we can make a ripple. That's still energy that's going out. So we can be that light and keep a positive message that we spread.
Right.
And I think I would rather do that than, keep spreading maybe some of the negativity.
Yeah. That's no fun.
No.
So discernment.
So looking at how do shows, songs, books make you feel, how they make you think. And now, again, you can record things and just get snippets, or you can go to YouTube, just get snippets and see. You don't even have to try on the whole thing. That's the beauty of modern technology, right?
Yeah. It's amazing.
So we're going to come back more because we have a third step for you all in how to be a conscious consumer of media.
Or pop conscious. Like we are.
That's right. And if you're inspired by this program, we are encouraging you to support our ministry with a love offering. You simply have to go to www.unityonlineradio.org, click on Donate Now, and be sure to put Pop Conscious in the honor section.
Yeah, because it's an honor.
It's an honor. So thank you for listening. We'll be right back in just a moment.
To our third segment of Pop Conscious, where we're talking today about how to consume the media without letting the media consume you, how to be conscious consumers and be pop conscious of your pop culture intake, yes. So the third step, the first step is to observe, pay attention to what you're watching, listening to, reading. The second step is to discern. Pay attention to how these things make you feel. Does it make you think about it afterwards? Do you feel smarter afterwards or not? Sometimes I feel dumber after having watched half an hour of something.
Right.
Guilty pleasures. Why do you feel guilty? What about them appeals to you? And now we're on the third step, which is consciously choosing what will feed my dreams, what will inspire me to be my best self. What will educate and inform me while I'm being entertained?
So what are you watching or reading right now, Malayna, that does that for you? Feeds your dreams?
One of my central dreams that I think started when I was a kid and watching movies and TV is time travel. Oh. I want to be a time traveler. And although it sounds like pure fantasy, there are ways that you can time travel in the modern world. Part of it is watching shows like Downton Abbey or historical dramas of any type.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah, we're time traveling, baby.
That's right. It feels that way.
Yeah.
When you're watching the shows.
Because you immerse yourself
right
in the storylines of those people and you understand the cultural limitations of that time. Another way is to travel in the real world, because when you go to another country, sometimes their idea of modern life is very different. And they also have maybe ancient ruins that you can visit that have been there for hundreds and thousands of years. So that's another way to time travel. So,
plus you time travel just with traveling, right?
Yeah.
You lose time or gain time and you may leave and arrive on the same day.
Yes, that happens.
So it's real life time travel.
It is, which is why I was so obsessed. A friend of mine and I built a whole website called Spiral World Travels, world as a WHIRL. Uh-huh. And it's about how you can time travel through pop culture, reading, watching TV, movies, whatever, or visit those places from the fictional stories in the real world, or visit them, just travel and learn the history.
And that's happened with Harry Potter. Mm-hmm. I mean, they have Harry Potter tours now.
Yes.
When you go to England, you can actually go to the castles and the different places that they film different scenes.
Right. So it's both the inspiration for the books and the film locations.
Right.
To immerse yourself in what would have been, if you just watched it, some light entertainment. You can actually sort of be in that world, kind of. And
now, I guess, for Downton Abbey, Highclere Castle, which they use as the setting and as the opening castle there in that show, they have, I guess, thousands of visitors every day.
I bet. I want to go.
I do too.
Let's go.
Okay.
We'll be broadcasting soon from Highclere Castle, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
Another sort of dream, along with travel, is just inspiration, things that lift me out of the mundane and the things I have to do to sort of see life differently. So the fantasy things and like you mentioned, Harry Potter, seeing, I don't even really know where I'm going with this, actually.
Well, you know what? Well, what it's tying in for me is...
Oh, thank you for saving me.
Yes. Well, because you'll see on my wrist here, and I'll take a picture and put it on our Facebook. It's a woven bracelet made out of little plastic bands. So they look like those little, the bands that people put for their braces.
Right, that's what I think.
Now my son, yeah, they look like braces bands, but they're different colors. It's called a rainbow loom. This is really, talk about pop culture. If you are between the grades of actually probably kindergarten to 5th, 6th grade, this is the huge rage right now.
Okay.
Is rainbow looms.
Okay.
And it's interesting because it takes looming and weaving, knitting, because
age-old skill
and hobby, right? And it brings it modern with it being plastic. And the kids are really into it. It's colorful. And you can do different types of weaves. So this one's flat, but others are, a little bit bulkier and just have different patterns.
So that feeds a skill or educates you and connects you back to maybe a previous time where looming was the only way that things were made, like cloth was made or jewelry.
And I hear now that the 20-somethings are really getting into what's called arm knitting. And I want to do this at our next summer camp for uniteens, right? So you take your arm and your
ball of
yarn, and I don't know how, I have to learn.
Okay.
But you just use your arm as a way to weave, what would be a big scarf.
Okay.
And other
I can't picture this at all. I'm going to have to YouTube it.
Yes. Well, there's a picture online, I remember, because I saw it and I thought, ooh, that would be fun because you don't need anything but yarn in your arm. If you have an arm and yarn, you're good.
All right.
But I thought how interesting that, again, here's an old skill, an old hobby that is being brought back in a new and modern way, and it's exploded.
I think also feeding dreams involves the superheroes and imagination, anything that inspires you to write or to create things out of your imagination. I went to Cirque du Soleil once, and I remember... I've been several times, actually, but I remember on this particular occasion, I was sitting pretty close to the front. I think it was in the big top in Santa Monica.
Oh, cool.
And watching these fantastical costumes and these beautiful, dance moves and amazing physical feats. And I thought, this all came from someone's imagination first.
Wow.
And you really can... with God, all things really are possible. You wouldn't think that somebody who imagined this sort of very colorful with the beaks and the feathers and the, all kinds of things. Each Cirque du Soleil show is different, of course, but somebody who could imagine a world like that, you would think maybe they'd be a painter or maybe they'd be an artist of some sort. But you wouldn't necessarily think that they would find people to inhabit those costumes and be able to do those crazy things and put it together and make it a real experience that you can have with real people right now.
And I think what that brings to mind for me too is that, well, I'm thinking of this great Apple commercial that's out right now. I think it might be for iPhones, iPads, but it's an Apple commercial. And in it, it's a teenager. It was running around the holidays. So it's the teenager is, on this trip with his family. It's like him and two sisters, mom and dad, they're in the car. And it looks like he's just on his phone. And then they get to grandma and grandpa's house and there's cousins there and, aunt and uncle. And it looks like he's the aloof teenager who's just on his phone, and they're like outside in the snow and they're all playing. They're like, hey, Tommy, or whatever his name is. And Tommy's on his computer, right? Or is on his phone. And so it's a whole setup. So finally they're there opening gifts and they're like, come on, get off the phone. And he says, well, wait a minute. And he plugs it in. He's been recording a movie of the whole weekend. Oh, it's a tearjerker, right? So when we look at choosing consciously, and I think maybe this goes a little bit with discernment as well, what judgments am I bringing in beforehand?
Right, true. You would think this is a lazy kid who just can't live without electronics and doesn't know how to go outside and play.
But he actually was creating this beautiful gift for his family of their memories of the weekend to keep. Right. So how often do we maybe look at a TV show or a book or a movie or song and say, oh, it's just about this, or I don't want to even look at it or experience it because I don't think it will have anything for me. But again, just staying open to the realm of possibilities. So when you were talking about Cirque du Soleil, looking at, wow, here's something completely strange and bizarre out of the box that I can get a lot of joy and fulfillment from, amazement of.
Yeah. It blows your mind, the things that those people do. And then I wonder, like, whatever made them even try to stand on their toe and twirl and, then balance on their forehead. Whatever, it's the acrobats and the, I don't know, what do you call those people who twist themselves into pretzels?
My son. My son.
Okay.
He twists himself into pretzels.
Contortionist.
Yes.
So
he actually is known as Pretzel Boy at school.
Wow.
Because he can sit, since he was the age of 2, he's almost 14 now, he can actually wrap his legs around to the back of his head.
Really long legs.
And he does, but contortionist.
Another way to choose consciously is if you notice that you're watching something and you're kind of getting bored, and you then start to get hungry or snacky or start channel surfing, try to choose something that you wouldn't normally choose. Like look and see what's on National Geographic Channel or Discovery Channel or like Oprah's network or Comedy Central.
Sci-fi too has some great shows.
Oh yeah.
On.
I mean, there are so many channels right now.
And sci-fi is not one that I would say. So that goes back to my earlier comment, I guess. That I wouldn't think. I guess my preset judgment would be there's nothing there for me.
Okay.
And I don't remember what, but the boys happened to be watching some really cool science show on there. And then, they have the previews for their other shows. Right. And I remember thinking, why aren't we watching this more often?
Yeah.
There was some really cool and informative, educational shows
science fiction also is, because it's based in science and the possibilities for the future, they may be fiction now, but they might not always be. I mean, watching the Jetsons when we were kids and they had the TV telephone,
right.
We're Skyping now. That's real. But it was, it seemed like amazing cartooning back then.
Yes.
Arthur C. Clarke, who was a resident of Sri Lanka for a very long time, a lot of his books mention technologies that have since been built. And he has a foundation that continues looking at actually creating the things from science fiction, from the possibilities of science. So cool. When you look at Star Wars, you get the Force and you get those ideas, but you can see, hovercrafts
are starting to come in.
Yeah. All these really amazing things come from somebody's imagination. And then it was carried from mind
idea
to expression. Or action.
Well, the expression part, I think of as being that action piece, walking your talk. Or your idea. Yeah. Manifesting. Right.
There you go. So,
now how about this idea, though, as we kind of start coming to the end here of what Charles Fillmore and other spiritual leaders have said, which is that we're not, spiritual law is always in effect. We had to just go over this in our house recently. So whether your thoughts or words are positive or whether they're negative, spiritual law is still going to be applied.
Right.
So if we're watching a show that we're like, brain dead about, whatever, maybe doesn't fulfill us spiritually. Are we still really asleep or are we observing?
Right. And our brains are really complex computers, and it's storing pretty much everything in there somewhere you can guess. So what are you filling your brain with? And when is that going to come out? When is that going to rear its head like some hidden monster and give you an idea of the world around you that may be not true? There's a lot of American shows, particularly, are known for gunshots, gunfights.
Right.
There's a lot of shooting in American shows. So, look at that culture and our cowboy culture and our the battle consciousness. Do we want to be looking at the world like it's a battle, or do we want a world of oneness? And then how does that play into drama?
Although I do now know, and I'm not going to mention any names.
Okay.
Some very spiritual people who watch shows like Breaking Bad and Anarchy, The Sons of Anarchy and stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
But again, that could be their version of The Bachelor for me. So.
Yeah, and if it's a story well told, good storytelling always has its value.
Well, yes, it does. And like you said, even the Bible, which some people think the Bible I can't read because there's the stories in there are so gruesome and so horrific, and at times they really are. And yet we can get a really positive message for our lives through them.
Absolutely.
Wow, this has been a full show, my friend.
Wow. We're going to talk about this more, I bet, eventually. But for now, we're going to first give a Magic Mirror shout out to our friend Scott Pomeroy, who we wish well as he pursues other adventures.
Yes, we do. Hello, Scott.
Hey there.
And good luck.
And we'd like to see our friend Reverend Margie Grounds in the Magic Mirror and thank her for her lovely review.
It's very nice.
Lori Clemens in San Diego, shout out for her recent comment about the show. We'd like to thank Jeremiah and Jeff and everyone at Unity Online Radio for all of their help and support.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
And because this show is brought to you in part by the Unity Church of Alhambra Foundation, we'd like to thank them. They're a financial foundation ministry supporting the work of Unity in the Southwest region. We are Pop Conscious, and thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Toodles.